Hello everyone and welcome to today's session. And today we'll be discussing the theory related to the chapter Reproductive Health. This is the part 5 of the lecture and we'll be discussing the NCERT section 3.5 in today's session. And this section is related to infertility. So before starting this lecture, I just want to give you one information that the images, text and other materials used in the presentations of education purposes only. We respect the intellectual property rights of the original creators and owners. If you are the owner and have any concerns or issues, please contact us at sathee@itk.ac.in and we shall remove the content immediately. Please note that parts of the content may have been generated using generative AI, which is experimental. So what are the objectives of today's session? What we will learn in today's session? So we'll talk about the infertility types and we'll talk about the reasons for the infertility. We'll talk about the assistive reproductive methods, also known as assistive reproductive technology. So within this, there are a lot of methods which are used to treat infertility. Okay, so we'll understand the treatment options also and what medical help is given to the couples who are infertile. And we'll also talk about the counseling which is given to these infertile couples. Counseling regarding which method they should, you can say, follow so that they can have a child. Okay, so we'll be talking about infertility today. Then we will summarize the entire lecture. Then we will discuss some NCERT based question. We'll discuss the keynotes. And then in the end, there'll be some interesting questions for you. Now let's begin with this session. So first we will understand what is the definition of infertility. So inability to produce children despite unprotected sexual cohabitation. This is known as infertility. Or in simple words, what you can say, what is infertility? It is inability to produce children despite the couples having unprotected sexual intercourse. So they are not using any contraceptive device, they are not using any condoms or any other contraceptive device that you have learned. Still they are not able to produce children. This is infertility. So there can be many reasons for this infertility. Sometimes the gametes they are produced, they are not viable. Okay. In case of males, the sperms, there is a low count of the sperms. The sperms, they are not able to swim because they have to swim and reach the ovum. Okay, now what are the common causes of infertility? First one is the physical. So what comes under physical problems? So sometimes the fallopian tubes can be blocked. So if the fallopian tube is blocked, then what will happen? Now what is the role of fallopian tube? So it is an accessory duct in the females. So if the fallopian tubes is blocked, then the egg transport will be blocked. Because what happens? The ovaries, they release the egg. They release the ovum. And this ovum is captured by the finger-like projection present on the infundibulum part of the fallopian tube. This finger-like projection, these are known as fimbriae. So this fimbriae collects the egg. Then from the infundibulum, egg reaches the next part, which is the ampulla. And from the ampulla, it reaches the isthmus. And in the ampulla, fertilization occurs. So if the fallopian tube is blocked, then first of all, egg transport will be blocked. Then what happens after the fertilization? The zygote then moves forward. It enters into the isthmus and then enter into the uterus. So this will also be blocked. So this comes under the physical problems. Another one is the low sperm count in the males. The next one is congenital. Congenital means by birth. So there are some genetic disorders which are by birth, and these are inherited from the parents. So congenital, these are known as birth defects, and some of the birth defects, they can affect the reproductive organs also. Examples are Turner syndromes and Klinefelter syndrome. So these are both genetic disorders, and in this there is the change in the chromosome number, and because of that the reproductive organs are affected. Okay, there is a change in the, you can say, sex chromosome. If there is a change in the sex chromosome, then reproductive organs can be affected. Now, due to some diseases also, infertility can be due to some diseases also. So condition like polycystic ovary syndrome, which is in females, this can lead to infertility. So this PCOD or PCOS, this is a hormonal disorder. Okay, and there is a swelling in the ovaries. Why there is a swelling in the ovaries? Because a cyst develops in the ovaries. Clear? And because of the development of cyst, there is no ovulation. So this can lead to infertility. Then sexually transmitted infections can also lead to infertility, because these sexually transmitted infections, okay, they affect the reproductive organs. So this can cause infertility in both males and the females. Then certain drugs can also cause infertility. So certain medicines, some steroids or recreational drugs, this can cause infertility. So these medicines, these drugs, they have a lot of side effects. Okay, so this can lead to infertility. Then immunological also, this is very important, immunological. So what happens here in immunological, the body's immune system, it start attacking its reproductive cells. So usually our immune system is designed to kill the foreign particles or the foreign antigens. But what happens in the case of autoimmune disorders, our immune system is not able to recognize between self and non-self. And the immune system start killing its self cells, its own cells. It targets its own cells. So it can target any cell. It can target liver cell, it can target kidney cells, it can target the reproductive cells as well. So the immune system start attacking its reproductive cells, then the person this can lead to infertility in that person, because reproductive cells, okay, they undergo meiosis. Meiosis occur in germ cells to produce the gametes. Next one is psychological. Now stress, anxiety or depression, this can also impact the reproductive function. So what happens when the person is under stress, or when the person is very anxious or depressed? The hormone level changes. Yes, so if the hormone level changes, then it can affect the body, it can affect the menstrual cycle, it can affect the ovulation, it can affect the sperm production also, because sperm production is also regulated by the male hormones, testosterone. Okay, so this comes under the psychological factor. Clear? So we have discussed the common causes of infertility. So these are the common causes of infertility. So if someone asks you, so there's a question in the exams, you can say there are 6 causes of infertility. Now in India, woman is commonly blamed for infertility, despite men being equally possible contributor of the infertility. So you can say in India, what is said that if the couple is not able to bear the children, then woman is infertile. It is the women are usually blamed. But males, they are also equally contributing to the infertility, because male might be producing less number of sperms, okay, or the sperms they are produced but they are not viable, or the sperm is not motile. Clear? Now, what are the treatment of infertility? How can you treat infertility? So there are various methods to treat infertility. Okay. So under this come assistive reproductive technology, abbreviated as ART. Now there are various methods under assistive reproductive technology. What are these methods? Let's discuss this. Now, first one is at the zygote level. So zygote is formed after the fertilization. So first one is at the zygote level. Okay, under this comes the in vitro fertilization. Okay, next one is ZIFT, zygote intrafallopian transfer, which is done after the IVF. So I'll explain you this. So in IVF, what happens? The zygote or the embryo develops outside the body in the lab conditions. Okay, so in vitro means artificial conditions. Okay, so here the embryo develops outside the body in the lab conditions in the test tube. It also known as test tube baby. Then this embryo or the zygote, you can say, zygote will later form the embryo, so you can say the zygote is transferred into the fallopian tube. This is known as zygote intrafallopian transfer. And the zygote can be transferred into the uterus also. This is known as intrauterine transfer. We will discuss these in detail. Next one is at the gamete level. Here gametes are transferred. Earlier zygote was being transferred. That's why ZIFT and IUT, these are kept under this broad category zygote, because zygote is being transferred here, and the zygote is transferred after IVF. Then next one is gamete. Here the gametes are transferred. First one is GIFT, gamete intrafallopian transfer. Gamete are transferred into the fallopian tube. Then next one is ICSI, intracytoplasmic sperm injection. Okay, we'll talk about this also. What is intracytoplasmic sperm injection? Then next one is artificial insemination. Okay, and IUI is intrauterine insemination. So these are two broad categories, and under this we will study all of these points that have been listed from 1 to 3 in zygote and 1 to 3 in the gamete. So here you can see this figure is showing you various methods of assisted reproductive technology, which is abbreviated as ART. So there are two broad categories: gamete level. It can be done at gamete level and zygote level. If we talk about the zygote level, under this comes the IVF, ZIFT and IUT. If we talk about at the gamete level, within this comes the GIFT, IUI and ICST. IUI is a kind of artificial insemination only. Clear? So here you can see in your textbook, in your NCERT textbook, you have a question number 9, which is related to this topic. So there is a question, what are the treatments for infertility? So you can make this flow chart here. You can make this figure here. Okay, so you can get the answer of the question number 9 here. So let's talk about first one, the zygote. Under this comes the in vitro fertilization. Now, what is the process of in vitro fertilization? So we will discuss this in brief. Ova or the egg, this is collected from the wife or the donor. Means the egg will be collected from the female. Then the sperms are collected from the husband or the donor. Means the male. Then fertilization occurs in the laboratory conditions here. Okay, means fertilization is taking place outside the body. So the conditions which are present within the body, they are mimicked in artificial conditions. And the fusion of the gamete occurs, you can say, outside the body in a culture plate or in a test tube. That's why it is also known as test tube baby. Now after fertilization, zygote develops. So zygote is a unicellular diploid structure. Zygote is formed by the fertilization So zygote is formed in the simulated environment. What do you mean by simulated environment? Means the environment or the conditions which are present within the body, they are provided in the artificial conditions. So now zygote has been developed. So this procedure is also known as test tube baby program, because the zygote is being developed outside the body in a culture plate or in the test tube. Okay. Now what happens in IVF? First of all, the zygote is being developed, and this is followed by embryo transfer. Clear? Now what are the methods of embryo transfer? These are ZIFT and IUT. Okay, by IVF, what is formed now? Zygote is formed. Zygote will develop into embryo. So after IVF, embryo transfer is done. Okay. So here you can see this is the process of in vitro fertilization. So you can see here, this is the female reproductive system. Here the uterus is level. These are the ovaries. Ovaries will produce the egg. Clear? Then what happens? Egg is released by the ovary. So here ovary stimulation is done. First step is ovary stimulation, means ovary are made to release the egg. Then egg is collected. Then sperm is also collected from the husband or the male donor. Then the fertilization will occur. This will lead to the formation of the zygote, and then embryo transfer is done. So these are the main steps here. Some additional steps are also written, but you have to focus on the main steps only. First of all, ovary stimulation. Ovaries are made to release the egg. Egg is collected. Then sperm is collected from the male donor or the husband. This comes under the conventional insemination. Okay. What is insemination? The transfer of the sperms into the female genital tract. This is actually the insemination. But here, insemination means the transfer of the sperms to this egg, this plate containing the egg. After that, fertilization will occur, and after fertilization, zygote is formed. Zygote will form the embryo, and then next step is embryo transfer into the uterus or into the fallopian tube. So next is the embryo transfer method. Under this comes the ZIFT, means zygote intrafallopian transfer. Okay, what happens here? Here the transfer of the zygote or the early embryo up to 8 blastomeres. So these embryo which consist of 8 blastomeres, these are transferred into the fallopian tube. So this is very important. Remember this. The question can come from here. In ZIFT, the embryo consists of how many blastomeres? So we'll write the embryo consisting of 8 blastomeres. This embryo is transferred into the fallopian tube. So we studied that in zygote, when the zygote is formed, in this zygote, repeated mitotic divisions occur, which is known as cleavage. And by this repeated mitotic divisions, daughter cells are formed, which are known as blastomeres. So embryo with up to 8 blastomeres, these are transferred into the fallopian tube. This is known as ZIFT. Next one is intrauterine transfer. So here the transfer of embryo with more than 8 blastomeres is done into the uterus. So there are two differences between ZIFT and IUT. First of all, in ZIFT, the embryo is transferred into the fallopian tube. Second is the embryo consists of up to 8 blastomeres. In IUT, the embryo is transferred into the uterus, and the embryo with more than 8 blastomeres, this is transferred into the uterus. So remember this difference. Okay. Now what happens in some cases, the in vivo fertilized embryo also. In vivo means in the natural conditions. Means the fertilization has occurred within the body of the female. So in some cases, in vivo fertilized embryo also, this can be transferred to help females which are unable to conceive. Okay, this is known as surrogacy. Clear? The embryo is fertilized in vivo, means in the natural conditions within the female body. But this embryo is transferred to some another female because that female is not able to conceive. There is no implantation. So this embryo can be taken out of that female and can be transferred to the surrogate mother, to another mother, which can conceive. The next one is gamete. Here there is a transfer of gamete. Earlier there was transfer of the embryo or the zygote. First one is GIFT. GIFT means gamete intrafallopian transfer. Again, you can see what is the process here. Here the gametes are transferred into the fallopian tube. So ovum from the donor, female donor, is transferred to a recipient's fallopian tube. Okay, so egg is transferred from the female donor into the another female. The recipient will be female only because fallopian tubes is in the female. Okay, so ovum is a gamete. That's why gamete intrafallopian transfer. Ovum from the female donor is transferred to the recipient female's fallopian tube. Recipient, why the ovum is transferred into the recipient? Okay, because the recipient female, it cannot produce the eggs. So it needs eggs from outside. Okay, but that female, recipient female, it can provide environment for fertilization, but it is not able to produce the egg. Clear? So eggs are transferred from another female into this female, and then the fertilization can occur in this female. And then the normal development of the zygote will occur. So this allows natural fertilization in the fallopian tube. Now next one is ICSI, which is intracytoplasmic sperm injection. Now what is this? So this is a laboratory procedure for embryo formation, obviously. What happens here? Single sperm is directly injected into the cytoplasm of the ovum. That's why it is known as intracytoplasmic sperm injection. Okay, single sperm, because what happens during the natural process also, only single sperm is able to fertilize the egg. So single sperm, it is directly injected into the cytoplasm of the ovum. So both of these sperms and ovum, these are gametes. That's why it comes under the category of gamete, and this is known as intracytoplasmic sperm injection. This is specialized form of assisted reproduction. So these are all assisted reproduction, assistive reproductive methods or assistive reproductive technology. These methods will enable the infertile couples to bear child, to produce child. The next one is artificial insemination. Under this comes intrauterine, you can say, insemination also. Okay, so IUI is intrauterine insemination. Okay, so artificial insemination, abbreviated as AI, this is a solution for male inability to inseminate. So what is insemination? The transfer of the sperm into the female genital tract, or transfer of the sperm into the vagina. So sometimes males are not able to inseminate the females. Okay, so this AI, artificial insemination, this is a solution for male inability to inseminate the female. Now, artificial insemination helps in low sperm count cases. So when the sperm count is low, okay, then artificial insemination is done. Okay, so you can write in which cases artificial insemination is done: when the male is not able to inseminate the female, and when the sperm count is low in the semen. So here what is done? The semen is collected and it is artificially introduced into the vagina of the female. Okay, in natural insemination also what is done? The semen, this is ejaculated by the penis, and the semen, which consists of the sperms, it is transferred into the vagina of the female. But here the semen is introduced artificially into the vagina of the female. Now another one is intrauterine insemination. Now what is intrauterine insemination? How it is different from artificial insemination? So it is also, intrauterine insemination is also one of the category of artificial insemination only, but here the insemination is done in the uterus, not in the vagina. Okay, so intrauterine insemination is another method of AI. Okay, here the sperms, the semen, it is transferred into the uterus, not into the vagina. These procedures are performed by professionals. Okay, because these procedures requires so much precision. Okay, and these procedures are very expensive also. So these procedures are all the couples, all the people, they cannot afford these procedures, and the success rate is also not 100%. So high precision handling is necessary. Expensive instruments are necessary for this. So what is happening in artificial insemination? Semen is collected from the husband. Okay, or the semen is collected from the healthy male donor, and it can be transferred into the vagina or into the uterus. Now let's talk about assistive reproductive technologies and its adoption in India. Okay, so limited fertility clinics and centers are available in India. So these assistive reproductive technologies, these are not well adopted in India because we have limited fertility treatment centers. Then the treatment cost is very high. So high treatment costs restrict the usage of these technologies. Then there are a lot of cultural and religious barriers also that limit the acceptance of this assistive reproductive technologies. So some religious views assist reproduction as unnatural. So there are some people who think that these assistive reproduction, this is unnatural. So this is against the laws of the nature. Okay, so then there is a social stigma also around infertility in certain communities. Okay, now what happens if the couples, they are not able to afford these techniques due to these reasons? Okay, then they can go for adoption. So adoption offers alternative path to the parenthood. So there are a lot of orphan childrens. Okay, these childrens, they don't have any food, they don't have any place to live. So this is a very, you can say, a noble thing to adopt the childrens. Okay, so adoption offers alternative path to parenthood. Now let's summarize this entire lecture now. We were talking about infertility. Okay, so what was infertility? Infertility is the inability of the couples to produce children even after having unprotected intercourse. Now, many couples worldwide face infertility issues. So, what are the causes of infertility? So, there can be physical cause, congenital cause, disease related cause, psychological cause as well, and due to uh, medications also, due to consumption of recreational drugs also, this can also lead to infertility. In India, females are often blamed, though males can equally be responsible for infertility. Now we talked about the treatment of infertility. Under this, we talked about assisted reproductive technologies, also known as ART. First, we talk about in vitro fertilization. So here, fertilization occurs outside the body, followed by embryo transfer. Embryo transfer can be done by ZIFT, which is transfer of zygote into the fallopian tube. Okay, or transfer of the embryo with up to 8 blastomeres into the fallopian tube. Next one is IUT. Here the embryo is transferred. Okay, embryo consisting of more than 8 blastomeres, it is transferred into the uterus. Then we talked about the transfer of the gametes. So within this we talked about GIFT, which is transfer of the donor ovum into the fallopian tube of the recipient female. Okay, then next one is ICSI. This is a direct injection of the sperm into the cytoplasm of the ovum. Then artificial insemination. Here the semen is introduced into the vagina or into the uterus. Okay, what are the limitations and alternatives? What are the limitations of these assistive reproductive technologies? What are the alternatives? So this assistive reproductive technology procedure requires specialized expertise and expensive instruments or equipments. Okay, there is limited availability and accessibility to these facilities. Now, there are a lot of social, emotional, religious factors that may affect the adoption of these methods. Clear? Now, legal adoption remains a viable alternative for childless couples in the India. So, adoption is an alternative if the person is not able or do not want to go for these assistive reproductive technologies. Now, let's discuss some of the questions which are you can say based on the topic we have discussed, infertility. So what is the question here? What are the different assistive reproductive technologies mentioned in the passage? So what will be the correct answer here? So let's have a look at the answer. There are 7 assistive reproductive technology methods. First one is in vitro fertilization, which is followed by the embryo transfer. Okay, embryo transfer can be done by ZIFT, which is zygote intrafallopian transfer, and embryo transfer can also be done by IUT, intrauterine transfer. Then fourth one is the GIFT, gamete intrafallopian transfer. Then ICSI, intracytoplasmic sperm injection, and then artificial insemination. Okay, and then IUI. IUI is also a type of artificial insemination. Now let's discuss this question. What are the major factors that contribute to infertility in the couples as mentioned in the passage? Okay, so what will be the correct answer here? So there are 6 factors that contribute to infertility in the couples. First is the physical factors, where sometimes the fallopian tube is blocked or there is a low sperm count, sperms are not viable. Okay, the congenital conditions, so these are by birth. Some of the genetic defects like Turner syndrome and Klinefelter syndrome, they affect the reproductive organs. Okay. The next one is certain diseases also, like sexually transmitted diseases. These STDs, they affect the reproductive organs and can lead to infertility if they are not treated timely. Then drug related issues also. So certain medications and certain drugs, certain steroids can lead to infertility. Then there is immunological factors. So under this comes the autoimmune. You can say condition where the immune cells, they are targeting the reproductive cells, which are self cells. Okay, and the sixth one is psychological factors. So under this comes the stress, anxiety. So the stress and anxiety can affect the hormonal balance of the body. Okay, and these hormones are involved in the gamete production. Okay, let's discuss some keynotes here. So we talked about infertility. Infertility is inability to produce children despite unprotected sexual cohabitation or despite having unprotected sexual intercourse. Causes can be physical, congenital disease, drug, immunological, psychological. We talked about assisted reproductive technologies. Under this, we talked about in vitro fertilization, which is also known as test tube baby program. Here, the fertilization is outside the body. Then embryo transfer is done. Embryo transfer can be done by ZIFT, okay, and by IUT as well. Other assisted reproductive technology procedures are at the gamete level. First one is gamete intrafallopian transfer. The next one is ICSI. We have discussed all of these methods. We talked about artificial insemination also. It is artificial introduction of the semen into the vagina or the uterus. Okay, then what are the limitations of assisted reproductive technologies? Required extremely high precision handling by specialized professionals, required expensive instrumentation. There's a limited availability and accessibility of these facilities. It is very expensive. There is a cost constraint also because these techniques are very expensive. They have very little. Their success rate is also not good. And limitations under this comes also social, emotional, religious barriers also. This also limits the adoption of assisted reproductive technologies. What are the alternative solutions? Legal adoption is one of the best methods for couples looking for parenthood. So adoption is the alternative solution for the infertile couples to enjoy parenthood. Okay, so this was the end of the theory now. Now we will discuss the DPP, which is related to this topic. Okay, so let's begin with this first question. What is the first question here? Which of the following techniques involves transferring an embryo with more than 8 blastomeres into the uterus? You have to name the technique. Okay, and here they are saying which involves transfer of embryo with more than 8 blastomeres into the uterus. The options are ZIFT, GIFT, IUT and ICSI. What will be the correct answer here? So let's have a look at the answer. Answer here will be option number C here, intrauterine transfer. So after in vitro fertilization, the zygote is developed. Zygotes undergo repeated mitotic divisions. It starts forming the embryo. The embryo with up to 8 blastomeres, these are transferred into the fallopian tube. This is known as ZIFT. And the embryo with more than 8 blastomeres, this is transferred into the uterus. This is known as IUT. GIFT, where the ovum is transferred into the recipient fallopian tube. And ICSI, when the sperms is directly injected into the cytoplasm of the egg. Okay, that's why the correct answer is option number C here, IUT. Next question, in which scenario is intracytoplasmic sperm injection most appropriate? So what will be the correct answer here? Option number 1, low sperm count in ejaculate. Second one is blockage in the fallopian tube. Third is inability of the male to inseminate the female. And fourth one is immunological incompatibility. So what will be the correct answer here? Okay. So here you can see option number A was low sperm count in ejaculate. Okay, so this can be the reason to go for intracytoplasmic sperm injection. Okay. Now blockage in fallopian tube. This is not correct answer. Then option number C is inability of the male to inseminate the female. Okay. Male is not able to inseminate the female. What is insemination? Transfer of the sperms into the female genital tract. Fourth one is immunological incompatibility. So this is also not correct here. So answer will be from option number A and C. But the most appropriate answer here will be option number A here, low sperm count in the ejaculate. Okay, option number A is the correct answer. Next question, which method involves transferring gametes into the fallopian tube of the female who cannot produce the eggs or the ova? So what they are saying in the question, the eggs, the ovum, the ova, this is transferred into the recipient's fallopian tube. Okay, recipient will be obviously the female. Okay, what is the name of this technique? So in this case, the female is not able to produce the egg, but the female, but within the body of the female, fertilization can occur. So what would be the correct answer? ZIFT, GIFT, IUT or artificial insemination. Fourth option is AI, artificial insemination. What would be the correct answer here? So correct answer here will be option number B here, GIFT, gamete intrafallopian transfer. So here the eggs, the ovum is transferred into the recipient female's fallopian tube. That's why it is known as ZIFT. Now next question, what is the primary reason for infertility cases where artificial insemination is recommended? So when is artificial insemination recommended? Options number A is female inability to produce ova. Female is not able to produce the egg. Then next one, blocked fallopian tubes. Third one is male partner's inability to inseminate or low sperm count. And fourth one is psychological factors in the female. So what will be the correct answer here? So let's have a look at the answer now. The answer will be option number C here. Okay, male's partner inability to inseminate or low sperm count in the semen. In this case, artificial insemination is recommended. So the insemination can be done in the vagina or in the uterus. Next question, why are assisted reproductive technologies like IVF, in vitro fertilization, not widely accessible in India? So option number 1 is religious laws prohibit their use. Option number B, in high cost and need for specialized professionals. Option number C is lack of proven success rate, and D is emotional acceptance is universal. What would be the correct answer here? So let's have a look at the answer here. Answer here will be option number B. So these assistive reproductive technologies, they are very costly and they require specialized professionals. Okay, so all the couples, they cannot afford this assistive reproductive technologies. Okay, and their success rate is also not good. But here the most appropriate answer will be option number B, high cost and need for specialized professionals. Okay, so with this we have discussed the DPP also. Okay, clear. So let's submit the answers. So all our answers are correct. So with this we end this session. I hope this session was quite knowledgeable for you. Now we will meet you in the next session. Thank you all very much for attending this session. Thank you very much.